Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you all here today. And actually, I'm a little bit nervous because I don't know how it is for you, but 16 months being out of the conference rooms, just doing everything digital, and then seeing so many people in real life again, it's a bit of a blast now. And let me see how we can get through this opening session and discuss the things for the future in medicinal cannabis, in Europe especially. And things have really and certainly changed, and it will probably take some time before everything turns back to normal, if that is even possible. We see it happening here, the masks and everything. It's here to stay, I think, for a bit. But it's an honor and a great pleasure to speak to you here today. And congratulations to the organization for pulling it off and organizing this event in such difficult times. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot has happened in the last years, also in our industry. And let me start off by telling you a little bit about how Bedrocan has been doing these days. As you probably all know, we are working under quite different regulations compared to many of our peers, for instance, in North America, but also an increasing number of European countries like, for instance, Portugal, Denmark, Malta. They all have different systems. And back in 2003, when the Dutch government decided to allow medicinal cannabis only and entirely based on the regulations as described by the United Nations in their conventions, narcotic drug conventions of 61 and 71. And in fact, that means that the trade of cannabis for medicinal purposes is a monopoly of the state, executed by an agency, in our case named the Office of Medicinal Cannabis, the OMC. And what you have to know is that this agency cannot just pick any company to grow for them. As the state is the monopoly holder of the trade, so they are forced to buy, the state is obliged to tender the purchase of any products when above a certain financial threshold. And of course, the Dutch government now realizes that the world is changing. And so they are contemplating a change in law to become more in line with the rest of the world. We are now expecting a report about possible changes, and that will be published anytime now. However, due to the current old situation, the government put a moratorium actually on all new activities with regard to commercial cultivation and production of medicinal cannabis in the Netherlands. And probably some of you are aware of the shortages nowadays of our products, but due to the current regulatory situation, we are not able to do anything more than we are doing now. Hopefully that changes very soon, and thus allowing us to further expand our production and address especially patient needs in Europe and beyond. And this brings me actually to one thing that really made an impression on me during these pandemic times. It was all of a sudden a very sticky situation around access to medicinal cannabis for a group of children with a severe form of epilepsy in the UK. Let me take you back a few years and introduce you to a small group of UK-based children that was suffering from up to 100 seizures a day caused by a specific type of child epilepsy. As a father of 3 healthy sons, I only can imagine what horror the parents must go through to see your child suffering like that. It's crazy. In this UK situation, this group already tried all regular medicines and therapies available, but nothing helped, at least not permanently. Until they tried a specific cannabis oil from the Transvaal pharmacy in the Netherlands. The seizures reduced drastically or even disappeared. However, the product was not available in the UK at that time. Some families even moved to the Netherlands, others went back and forth, and some got even arrested or the oils were taken away. Again, imagine your child in life danger, a small bottle with liquid in it turns out to be a possible life-saving drug, but you cannot access it because it is only available in another country. And when you bring it home, your own government seizes this as a medicine for your child. After years of fighting the system in 2018, parents were finally allowed to bring the product from the Dutch pharmacy into the UK legally. And this brought peace to dozens of families in the UK. Until January 1st, this year, 2021. With the UK now officially leaving the European Union, the Dutch pharmacy was no longer allowed to accept prescriptions from the UK. The life-saving drug suddenly became unavailable, and again, because of political issues, these children had absolutely nothing to do with. There is no logic behind the whole situation, and the press in both the UK and the Netherlands jumped on the matter. Parliaments on both sides of the sea asked their ministers for answers. Even crisis teams were formed in both governments, and for a couple of weeks, dozens of people on both sides were desperately looking for a solution. In the end, a deal was struck between two ministers. At that level, it happened. The prescriptions of these 42 children would be accepted for another 6 months, and in the meantime, the Dutch pharmacy would educate a UK pharmacy in how to produce that specific oil for these children. The Dutch government promised to deliver the cannabis API for this process, and this is now well underway, and hopefully the first UK-produced oil will reach these 42 patients in the coming months. So everybody happy, you would say. Well, maybe for now, but what if the next hiccup appears? What if the UK pharmacy, the only one then able to make the oil, goes bankrupt, burns down, whatever can happen? Or what if the Dutch government chooses another cannabis producer and the product that we make, or the API we make, is no longer available? Yes, as I said, they still tender their need for medical cannabis. These 42 children and their parents will be in the same terrifying uncertainty again, and beyond that, what about children in the same condition in other countries? Spain, Ireland, Poland, Hungary. What about them? Sadly, governments and regulators are not able to build an international, harmonized system for medical cannabis. Cannabis regulations still remain under a patchwork of local rules. Ladies and gentlemen, in our industry, we hear it all the time. We need harmonization of international regulations. I said it myself years ago, and it sounds so logical, and we all keep repeating it after each other. Harmonization. We need harmonization. But I hardly ever heard a more hollow phrase now. We need harmonization of cannabis regulations. Harmonization, according to the dictionary, is the act of making systems or laws the same in different countries so they can work together more easily. So the act of making systems or laws the same in different countries so they can work together more easily. So actually, 20 years ago and more, we already had full harmonization on medical cannabis in Europe because all European countries prohibited cannabis. Were we happy back then? No, absolutely not. But hey, it was full harmonization at that time. So the conclusion should be harmonization by itself means nothing. It is the content of the rules that matter. So if we want to make systems the same, which system do we choose for everyone? If we want to have the same laws in all countries, what should be in those laws? That is the question we need to answer. And that is also the question, luckily, bodies like the INCB and the European Parliament are now trying to answer. But I do not think it is only the responsibility of the regulators to harmonize their rules. Yes, in the end it is. But first, as an industry, we need to get our act together. How can we ask governments to harmonize if we, the industry, are so divided and do not show how it should be done? Before we have any right to complain about lack of harmonization, I believe there are 3 very important steps we need to take first. Step 1. We need a full separation between medical cannabis and cannabis for recreational use. I dare to say here today that companies who do not and cannot separate medicinal cannabis and cannabis for recreational use are actually harmful for any efforts towards harmonization and international patient access. My company has worked endlessly to gain trust with governments in the sense that we are not here to make quick money. It's not what it's about. We are not here to sell as much cannabis as possible. We are here to deliver quality of life to a group of patients that might benefit from the product. And that is also what governments, at least in Europe, are looking after. Sadly, there are companies trying to sell products for the recreational market from the same facility as they are selling medicinal products. This creates huge confusion, but also distrust with governments who are trying to keep the recreational market out, which is currently the case in Europe. And if the industry doesn't recognize the difference, why should or would governments do? Only once we, as an industry, recognize the fact that there should be a clear separation between recreational and medicinal cannabis, not only in regulations, but also within ourselves. How can we expect a Ministry of Health to trust us and the medicinal product, and that we have the best interest of the patient in mind when our company websites are flashing with cannabis candy or soft drinks? Those are things that need to stop, that need to be separated from each other. That way, or this way, we are harming actually patients' interests, and I totally understand regulators if they try their utmost best to keep these companies out. And we go to step 2. We need high quality standards for cultivation. If we as an industry achieved to separate medical from recreational, then we need to set the highest possible quality standards for our cultivation sites. How can we ask governments to treat our medicinal products like they do other products, but at the same time lobby for easier rules and regulations? At Bedrocan, we decided 8 years back already to become GMP certified. Not because anyone asked us. No, because we believe that we deliver a medicinal product. And it's our duty to produce it like any other medicine out there. It took some discussion also with our regulators, but they started believing in it. We want to be accountable for every step in the procedure. And that is what patients deserve. Have strict procedures all throughout your company and live by them. To the dot. Not because rules and laws are forcing you to do so, but because you understand and embrace the shortcomings of us as humans in doing everything correct. It's very hard, always. So if you find a shortcoming in your company anywhere, just report it and take your responsibility. The INCB, our UN-controlled substances watchdog, is now working on a set of guidelines for countries on how to organize their cannabis growing activities. And what I just said is exactly what will be in those guidelines. And if you ask me, these guidelines cannot be strict enough. Patients deserve the best, and especially the safest. And if you cannot deliver that, then find another product to sell. That's the way to make it easier on yourself. In the Netherlands, the government expects GACP, Good Agriculture and Collection Practices in cultivation, and GMP for everything from the drying onwards. We at Bedrocan now have not accepted that. GACP, as we sometimes say, is for onions, not for cannabis flowers that are directly used by patients. We have drafted a complete quality management system for the cultivation of our medicinal cannabis. We handed it to our healthcare inspectorate and asked them to judge it based based on that and to judge us on the basis of that. And if they want to change anything, they are absolutely free to do so, and we will live by it. Why? Not because we must, but because we want to. We need the highest possible standards for cultivation, not the most convenient and easy ones. Then we go to step 3, quality of the product. When we have made a clear separation between recreational and medicinal, and we have set the highest possible standards for production facilities and live by them, then we get to the actual product. As a producer of medicinal products, it is up to you to prove that your product is safe and effective. You don't do that by pointing at studies done by someone you don't know with a product that is not yours. No, you do your own studies from stability to clinical on your own products. You do everything in your power to prove that your product is safe and effective for patients. Only then you can expect regulators to trust the product that came out of your facility. How can you expect regulators to allow your product on the market if you have zero data to support it? You cannot. Every cannabis variety is chemically different. Every method of extraction, form, size, and package is different. Harmonization is not possible if we keep denying that. Pleading for patient access to medicinal cannabis in general is nonsense. Pleading for patient access to a specific product that is proven safe and effective for a specific indication produced under the highest possible quality standards, that makes sense. So when you ask me, only if we as an industry can get our act together, only if we make strict separation between medical and recreational cannabis, only if we make sure our production facilities pass any inspection for the highest possible quality standards with flying colors, and only if we deliver all necessary data with our products so doctors feel comfortable to prescribe, only then we can ask our governments and regulatory bodies like the INCB to harmonize rules and regulations. So ask yourself, does my company live up to this? Or do we need to improve ourselves? Maybe you have an answer right now. Maybe you have to give it some more thought during these days here in Frankfurt. And having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a very pleasant stay here in Frankfurt, and I am happy to talk to you later today in the roundtable sessions. Thank you very much.